Before I introduce Rabbi Ralbag, I should have done started with that. I wanted to publicly thank my father for coming. Achiezer's rabbinical advisor. A few of our board members I saw. If I forget anybody, be my I saw Mr. Lowinger, Mr. Shuli Woolman, Mr. Michael Crandall, Rabbi Yisrael Kalish. Thank you all for coming, and Rabbi Rosenberg, and thank you everyone that's here. I'm not going to give a long introduction, but I wanted to say one thing. Ellie touched on it, that the idea that I've said it last year, you'll have to forgive me, is that chesed is contagious. Once Moshe Schreiber so eloquently put years ago in our first video program, once the ball starts rolling, you never know where it's going to end. In 60 seconds, I'll tell you. There was a woman we were helping in the office, whoever she was, a mishpacha. And there wasn't a lot of money coming to the house due to a loss of income. So she had to avail herself of the various programs that the government makes available. Okay, whatever it is. To make a long story short, that woman, who literally had nothing to her name, was evicted, thrown out of her apartment, had no money to buy bread and butter. She came with a taxi, picked up the woman that can't hear, drove her down to took a taxi together with the social services, and because she knew the program so well, she spent the entire day with this other lady who couldn't hear, speaking for her, signing her paperwork, and was able to get that unfortunate person all the help that they needed. I don't think there's any other explanation. When Achiezer started, and it wasn't that long, it was 4 years ago, one of the first Rabbanim I had spoken to at that point, it's just the way the Rabbanim Shalom Fear developed, was Zvi Ralbag. And there were certain people, it was a very new concept, it was vague, it wasn't specific. We're going to help, all kinds of help. It was far from where we are today. Rabbi Ralbag immediately, I don't know if he remembers his words, he didn't care. Specifics, medical recommendations, hospital, doesn't make a difference. You're helping Klal Yisrael. You're going to be doing something that's going to make sure that when people in the community have a problem, they have a place to turn to. Ever since then, I've considered myself, I'm not going to call him a friend, he's a lot more worthy than I am. Rabbi Ralbag is someone who I speak to frequently, so I'm able to consult with. The way he's carried his shul, his community the last few months, doesn't need me to give a hesped about him. But I want to give him a public yashar koyach, and I want to ask Rabbi Ralbag to share some special words with us.
By the way, we are friends. Firstly, Poislim Mechaved Achsanya, I'd like to thank the host of tonight, Yaron Kilson, for generously opening up your home. You should continue to do only chesed, tzedakah, and simchas in this home. B'shus, Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Bender Shlita, Bochber, the Kol HaKodesh Hazeh. And I'll tell you why I say Kol HaKodesh Hazeh. Well, Ben asked me, he said, do me a favor, come tonight, speak for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and give Divrei Chizuk. And I walk in here, and before it even starts, I feel I'm not the one giving Chizuk, but I'm the one getting Chizuk. And I'll tell you why. I stand in awe for this entire crowd. Because what you manage to accomplish and what you manage to do on a daily basis, these are things which are tremendous things, and I'll explain. Chesed. What is real chesed? So you know the pasuk says we learn from Avraham Avinu. After all, Avraham is chesed. And what's the paramount example when he stands Pesach Oyel, he stands by the entrance of his tent, and he sees the three strangers, Vayar, Vayoratz, the Krosom, and he runs towards them, and he's still speaking to Kadosh Baruch Hu, says, Vayar, he says, no, Hashem, I need to take care of these guests. From there we learn Chesed, Achnasas Achim, greater in Kabbalah's Bnei Ashkina than we in Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I saw a question, okay, we know that. How did Avraham Avinu know? Who gave him the right? He didn't know that. Who gave him the right? He was speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who gave him the right to say, I'm sorry, Hashem, I need to take care of those people? How did he know he can do that? And the answer I saw is what real chesed is. Vayar vayoros. He ran. He wasn't thinking. It automatically carried him and he ran towards his guests. And after he greeted those guests and he ran, he said, oh my goodness, I forgot about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu vayoyma im lo motzasi chen beinecha. Avraham Avinu didn't make that decision. Chesed was natural by him. It was part of his being. Before he even realized anything, he was on his way, vayar vayorotz. What you managed to accomplish in Achiezer as volunteers, you are the paradigm of chesed because it's natural to you. Vayar vayorotz, it's natural, you're part of it before you even realize you're doing it. That's the type of chesed that you're doing, and that's the real chesed, and that's the chesed of Avraham Avinu. Chesed which comes naturally, becomes part of you. Vayar vayorotz is automatic. And I stand in awe from that because many people do chesed, they do it for fame, they do it because it feels good, they do it because they get recognition. But if you do it on a volunteer basis, Achiezer, people don't know even your faces. I see all the people here and I say, it's a pleasure to meet you here. And you meet some people at different places, but I see anybody who's here, it's such a kavod and a schus to meet you here. You are the faces behind this chesed. You're doing it because it's natural. It's part of you. Vayar vayorotz. We end up in Shmones, the bracha, the first bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Mogen Avraham. And why do we end up with B'chol Chaisnim with Avraham Avinu? And the answer is because Torah, which represents Yaakov Avinu, clearly the Torah today is not the Torah from the previous generations. Avodah, which is Yitzchok, Avodah, the davening, the tefillah, kabbalas, not the same like previous generations where, a bunch of notches less. But when it comes to chesed, the chesed, it can be the same as Avraham Avinu. The chesed, which is natural chesed, that's what you represent. And therefore, for one reason, I stand in awe for everybody here. That's one reason. I'll tell you another reason, which I think became so evident and so clear during the last disaster, Hurricane Sandy, but it's pervasive throughout the entire Achiezer movement. During the storm, so I received a letter from one of the foremost mashgichim, Balei Musa in Eretz Yisrael. And he wrote a letter in English to be mechazik the people. And he writes like this, I quote the letter, he didn't want to say who it was, it remains nameless. He writes, Hashem is revealed in every situation. Even in difficult situations, you can see Yad Hashem. He's revealed through the actions of the Yidden who make themselves into physical extensions of His spiritual hand, doing His will, showing the world what divine midos look like. He writes, this is a crisis, but it's also a triumph, because in the long run, people will forget about Sandy, but they'll remember the acts of kindness that took place. Just last night at my shul dinner, somebody comes over to me and says, Rob, you should know. And he lost everything. He must have lost $250,000 on the value of his house, which is non-recuperable. He says, I forgot about that already. But I still remember all the chasodim which were done. That stays. And he writes like this. He says, this is what he writes to our community. Your community has a special schus. You were chosen to represent us all, and you are on the front line, passing the nisayon for all of Klal Yisrael. Thank you for being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim B'Fahesia, and for being mechazik an entire generation of Jews who are watching. That's what you are doing on a daily basis. Yeah, everybody knows about it during Sandy, but you're not just doing chesed like Avraham Avinu's chesed, the natural chesed, but you're Mekadesh Shem Shemayim B'Fahesia. Constantly people are saying, wow, look at Jews, the way they help each other out. Look at this organization, Achiezer. That's a Kiddush Shem Shemayim B'Fahesia. What greater thing is there than that? So there's two things. Real chesed of Avraham Avinu and Kiddush Shem Shemayim B'Fahesia. And then there's something, the third thing, which I thought about this Shabbos, and I think that's what's the greatest chus of everything. This week's parsha Pasuk tells us, Kedoshim to you. Very important charge to be holy, Kedoshim. We all strive for that. We all want to have holiness. We all want to have Kedusha, and our Torah, and our Yerushalayim. Everything we want to envelop it with Kedusha. Right? That's what our goal is. Ultimately, that's what we strive for. If you look at the Psukim, the Pasuk right before the word Kedoshim, be holy, is coaxed between two sentences. Daber el kol hadas b'nei Yisrael, first sentence, Kedoshim to you, and the very next Pasuk, Ish imoy v'aviv tiro. There's no reason why Kibbut Avein, what's the relevance? But I said like this. The reason why it's coaxed between those two psukim, Kol Kal Adas B'nei Yisrael and Ish imoy v'aviv, because to be kadosh, to be holy, to do the right thing, to gender and foster Yiddishkeit and Torah and mitzvahs, it's not done in a vacuum. You need to have a kahal adas b'nei Yisrael. You need to do it together, right? If you do it by yourself, it's hard. If you have a whole group, a whole community doing the same thing, much better. So the first thing you need is kol kahal adas b'nei Yisrael. Everybody has to be doing it. Everybody has to have the same goals, and that's why we live in our neighborhood, because people around us have the same goals. But it's not enough. You can have people doing the same thing with the same goals, but you still need the imoy v'aviv tiro. You still need the people doing it, the kahal, the group, to have this bond, to have the imoy v'aviv, to feel like they're coming from the same home, the same father and mother, the same familial home, the same parental home. You want that everybody doing the same thing feels close, cares for each other, feels for each other. You don't want it just to be kahal adas b'nei Yisrael, but kedoshim, the true kedoshim, if the kahal, if the group cares for each other and feels for each other, and they know we're in this together, everybody feels we're part of the same family. And what Achiezer managed to accomplish, and all of you managed to accomplish, and that's why I stand in awe, is because you have brought to this community, to the Five Towns community in Rockaway, this concept of caring for each other. Robert mentioned, chesed is contagious. Not just it's contagious. If I see how Achiezer cares for me, he's making us kedoshim, I stand in awe. And for that I have a tremendous, and I speak in the name of myself, and everybody that feels the same way, and everybody feels that way, we stand in awe, and we thank you, and we give you yashikayach, and keep up the work, because you are our shluchim. Thank you.